Hello. All right, per request, I am going to tell you a little bit about my process of psychic development. So, first of all, what does that mean? That means developing the skills that allow us to be in communion or communication with what is beyond our 3D physical reality. So, and that I would say includes the regular thoughts as well, because we have different types of ways that we can use our mental energy. And it is not psychic to just be using the same thoughts that are kind of always there. They say there's some statistic, and I don't know how they got this number, but they say that like 90% of the thoughts that you think today are just the thoughts that you thought yesterday. And regardless of the number, that is really important to consider, because what that means is that most of our thinking is patterned, and that if we don't figure out ways to get out of the way, then our thoughts are just going to kind of keep doing their thing, because our logical mind is actually trained to do its job of protecting us. So if we allow it to, it's going to continue to cycle those same thoughts that are checking things, that are making sure that everything's planned properly, that there's nothing that's threatening us, all that good stuff that we want our logical mind to do. But we want to be in charge of employing the logical mind to do that work in specific containers, right? We don't want it to just take up our entire mental space, because then we miss out on the number one most important aspect of psychic development, which is allowing inspiration to be able to come to us. So it comes to us, it comes through us, right? But if there are thoughts in the way all the time, you're not going to hear anything else. You're not going to be able to perceive what is coming to you. So you might be going, higher self, I'm asking you for this message, or I pray, but God never says anything back, or I'm trying to communicate with my guides, but I think I just don't have any because I never hear anything, or whatever your framework is for the world that's beyond this world. You may feel like you have a block there, and I guarantee that your block has nothing to do with whether or not you have support on the other side, because you do. We all do. We come that way. And we all have a higher aspect of ourselves that is dreaming us into this reality. So we have access to that version of us and their much more expanded understanding of what we're going through at all times. However, you might not be able to hear it. So the thing that I think is the most important to focus on for the beginning stages and throughout of psychic development is clearing the mental space. I literally wrote a book about this. It is in the process of being published right now. So if you want updates on that, join my email list, because that's where you're going to find them. But this is like the foundation of most of the work that I do when I put out music that helps us retrain the way that our thoughts work. We're trying to get to the point where the inner voice, where the voice of the soul is the loudest voice, the loudest influence that we're hearing throughout our day. Because the voice of the soul is also the voice of the guides, the voice of God, the voice of the angels, the voice of whatever helpers you have on board, right? So we want to create an open channel for that voice, for that information to come through. Now we can also talk about this with different words. We can say that that is the same as living in the flow state. That when we're living in the flow, when we've created that space in our mental field, then our mental energy is actually free to be able to work on our manifestations, to be able to be employed toward creating structure. So we can also talk about that as being that masculine energy. We've got the feminine energy of the infinite creative matrix, and we can bring through those ideas into the structure that we create with our mental energy. So then our thoughts, actually, we have to think about them as actions. Our thought is action, and it's the action that precedes all other action. So when you have thoughts that are cyclical, that are repeating, that are patterned, you're going to notice that the events in your life are also patterned, and that you're going to be presented again and again with the same situation, person, or trigger, because you're being presented with the medicine. You're being presented with the opportunity to do something different in the internal world. You're being presented with an external mirror that says, hey, look, this is still functioning the same way within you. Here's another opportunity to change how this is functioning within you. So if you're being presented with the same situation, you're being presented with yet another opportunity, the same opportunity to look inward and go, okay, how do I clean this up? And I point like this to my body because my heart center is the part of me that I'm really getting at when I'm talking about this. Because the second part of this is, well, okay, so how do we get out of the mind so that the mind actually has enough space to, one, bring through inspired thought from the higher aspects of our being or from the soul voice, and two, can be mobilized toward whatever goals we have or whatever feels like fulfillment to us, whatever is us in the flow state. So how do we get out of the way and then mobilize that mental energy? Well, we have to go somewhere else, right? We can't have our attention in our mental space, because as long as you're putting attention on something, you're holding it in place. And I have a special meditation that I do with my clients in sessions that allows that whole channel of energy that we have to be freed up, and everything reorganizes naturally. It's just the beautiful innate nature of energy work, because we don't notice where we have these specific attachments to different thoughts and emotions that are actually associating with the fascia in our body, and how our fascia is holding our organs, and how our energy systems and structures in our body are working. So when we pull our attention into a more expanded place, just like with thoughts, all of that can naturally clean and reorganize. So that's what we do with the mental space too. We put our attention somewhere else that isn't the thoughts. We don't want to have a thought and then give attention and energy to that thought and grow it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We want to be able to look at the whole garden and then figure out what it is that we need to weed. And sometimes we even need to pull something out and look at it and go, do I really want to grow this? Yeah, I do. And put it back in. And it's okay to do that. Just like how you could pull up a carrot, check it out, and it's still a living being, and you could put it back in the ground and it would continue to grow, right? So how do we do that? How do we get out of the way? How do we stop putting so much focus and attention on our mental, logical space? We get into the heart. We get into the heart space. So how do we get into the heart space? We get into the body. So embodiment, working with somatics, or the practice of feeling in a physical way, actually allows us to then feel with the heart, and everything is able to be processed through the heart. I have a song about this. It's the last song on my album called Between. If you look up Between by Mama Rose, you're gonna get a whole album, 60 minutes, full of opportunities to do this work in your own mental space, to get out of your own way and get into your own body and your own heart through trance induction, meditation, and dance that I've put into music. And the last song on this album is called Desires. And it's a really interesting song because it's a storytelling song, but it brings you through a process of doing energy work by listening to it, so that by the end, you're freed up, you're clear, and you have an understanding of how this works. So we're working on remembering the way of doing things that is already innately ours. It's in us, right? Like, we all know how to do this because this is just the way that we naturally function as humans. Just like a tree just knows how to be a tree, right? A squirrel knows how to be a squirrel. We know how to be a human, but our mental space has gotten so collectively cluttered that we forget. And we don't have to do anything. We don't have to like put more into the mental space, like learn more and gain more knowledge and gather more and pack it in tighter. We need to start taking things out. So again, take things out by just going somewhere else entirely. You have to actually set it down and let it go in order to move into a place where that can all just naturally reorganize and cleanse and clean and do its own energy work within your thought space. So get into your body. That is the most important part of psychic development. Yeah, it's not sitting around and envisioning a white ball. It's not practicing telepathy with your friends. It's not any of that stuff. It's cultivating the ability to actually be able to listen. Because if you're trying to be a medium, which you absolutely can do by nature of being human, and you want to be able to talk to your loved ones who've passed on, but you can't hear anything because all you hear is your own thoughts, how is that going to work? You have to create the space. You have to create the space in your life. You have to create the space in your mind. You have to be open to understanding too that you are being lived by life, right? Life is the higher power. Life is the highest power. And you have this life force energy, this eros, this erotic life energy that lives in you. Look up the definitions of those words, of eros, of erotic. I'm not talking about like perverted sexual stuff. That's not what your sexual energy is. It's not attached to anything. That's thoughts. That's where thoughts clutter your life force energy. Your life force energy should be freely flowing, nourishing your entire system, not just your physical body, but also your energetic and etheric bodies. It should be cleansing and clearing your emotional space and attracting everything to you and making you a magnet so that when you move through your life, you're not even actually moving. It's more so that the moment is continually arriving at your feet. Okay, that's a very different feeling. The difference between having to come up with all this energy to move through your life yourself or just being the recipient of the flow of the river. And it all just comes right to you, right? So you can think about it that way, or you can think about it as letting life live you. If you let life live you, you don't have to come up with the energy to do that. Life is energy. It mobilizes you. So it just gifts you the energy to move through your experience in your life, and also gifts you all of the information that you need, all the signs, symbols, meditative insights, everything that we talk about as being the clair, the group of psychic senses, the clairs, which is just the French word that means clear. So we've got clear sight, clear knowing, clear hearing, etc. And you can develop all of those senses, all of those psychic senses, simply by being able to tune in to yourself. But that's where this starts. So you don't need to read any more books. You don't need to do anything unless it helps you remember, right? Unless it helps you clarify this space. And you will find aligned teachers, of course, we all do, and that's a part of our process. We're meant to do this together and in community, and with teachers, with mentors, and that could even be like you watch a movie that brings something out and inspires something in you, or there's a character in a book. Like, it doesn't even have to be me or somebody that you seek out intentionally. It could be anybody. But you will find these teachers along your path. And you will find that your intention to do this work is all that it takes to do this work. So your intention, even if you don't know how any of it is supposed to come together and you're like, I could not organize the pieces of this journey if I tried, you're not supposed to try to plan this all out, okay? You're supposed to take aligned action based on your feeling sense of what is right for you, because it's going to feel like your soul. So you have to get in touch with knowing what your soul feels like. Because if you don't even know what your own unique soul frequency sounds like, feels like, what that resonance feels like, then how are you going to know what resonates with you? You're not going to be able to hear the things that resonate with you and go toward that if you can't hear yourself. So you have to clear out all the other voices and the things that are in the way there, and really start to pull out these thought structures and beliefs and go like, did somebody give this to me? Is this something that I came up with myself? Is this something that I brought here with me? Does it benefit me? Is this something I want to keep carrying? Is this heavy? Do I want to let it go? What happens if I set it down just as an experiment? What if I give myself 10 minutes where I don't engage with this pattern thinking and I let myself know after 10 minutes, sure, I'll come back to worrying about this the same way that I always do. But for 10 minutes, every single time that this worry comes up for me, I'm going to notice it and I'm going to not engage with it. And I'm going to maybe do something else, like a little hip circle or a deep breath or something that keeps me in my body so that my heart can function to process this. Because the heart is the only able part of us that we have to be able to process feelings. And yet the mind tries to do it all the time. The mind tries to process through thoughts. And it creates quite a lot of clutter and chaos. And if you find that you're moving through your life and you feel directionless, or you feel unfulfilled or confused, or like you don't have the clarity, whether it's in your psychic senses, you don't have clairaudience, you don't have clairsentience, whatever, or you just don't have a sense of clarity, check your thoughts. That's where psychic development starts, okay? So I hope that this has been helpful as a start. I know it's just the tip of a very, very large and beautiful iceberg. And if you would like to work on your psychic development one-to-one with me, if I feel like a resonant teacher for you, then reach out to me or check out my website. You can find the links to everything in my bio, and you can join my newsletter where I give you tips and more opportunities for exclusive content and things like that there too. I also do one-to-one readings, which include psychic reading as far as information being delivered, and also really beautiful, powerful, potent energy work and channeled guided meditations. So all of that's available. My music is streaming everywhere as Mama Rose. You can start with Between by Mama Rose, and I swear, like, this is me in my aligned, authentic self, is creating all of this to share. So pick it up and see what happens, because the flow state is contagious. And if you want to be in it, I'm in it. Check out what I'm giving you. It will bring you into the flow state as well, because we get to do that for each other. So this is Mama Rose. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And let me know, what else do you want me to make a video on?